everybody. Today with us we have Mahabanoo Mody Kotwal, an amazingly powerful woman. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Starting with this conversation, I would want to understand that how did you come to theatre? Well, I've read a lot and it is all there if you look you up, but it would be really nice to hear from you.
One of the things that I experienced was sexism in my young days when my father wouldn't allow me to take up acting as a career. That was something I always wanted to do. And when I was 16, I got a scholarship to a New York acting school. And my father said that no good, decent Parsi girl does acting. So that, put paid to my dreams of being an actor at a very young age. I trained with a very, very famous actor from the Royal Academy of Drama, Hima Devi. And I trained with her till I was about 16 or 17. Even after I left school at 15, I trained with her. But my father put an end to my dreams. So I did a BSc in microbiology chemistry, and I did a BSc in geology chemistry. So I have two science degrees, both of which are worthless to me at the moment. And then, of course, I got married. I went to the US to work so that my husband could go through college. I came back and I was not doing anything much. I joined a little group called Indus International, which is a cultural and social group where women from all over the world are members in Bombay, living in Bombay. And over there, they had different interest groups like book reading, performing arts. So, of course, I joined the performing arts very eagerly. And I remember in 1973, when I joined that school, with that organization, they were doing a play. And I desperately wanted to be in it. So there was this wonderful woman who later became a great friend, Kamalini Parpia. She's no longer there. I requested her. She was the director. And the title of the play was Sorry, Wrong Number. So I begged of her. I said, please, I have to be in this play. And she said, no, you're new. We have a lot of actors who want to. But I think I was so persistent that in the end she gave up. And she said, okay, you must sit in the corner on the stage. And every time the phone rings, you just pick up the phone and say, sorry, wrong number, and put it down. And that was my foray into acting after returning from America. Then, of course, I got to know them better. And very often I would take part in all their plays. And very often they would tell me, oh, you should be on the professional stage. But, friends are always kind. And I feel that friends saying something doesn't really mean much because they're always kind. So then my son went abroad in 1986. And when he came back for a holiday from his college, he brought a play with him. At that time, I just had a hysterectomy. And I was 44 years old in 88, yes. And he wanted to do a play written by one of his professors. And the play was called Eden Tree. And it's funny, but it was 5 monologues. And that was the first professional thing that I did. And it was very funny because the United States Information Service, USIS as it was then called, gave us 3,000 rupees to put up the play. So a friend did the costumes. It was wonderful. None of us got paid, of course, there was no money. Then slowly advertisements started coming in. In 1992, there was a director from Broadway who came to Bombay for the Prithvi Festival. He wanted to do a one act. And he called me and I auditioned for it. And I got the part I wanted. Unfortunately, all the other actors wanted the main parts. And there were only really 3 main parts in it. So he couldn't do that play. So he said, why don't we do 4 one-act plays that last about an hour and a half? So he selected me for 3 of the 4 one-act plays. And after that, things just kept rolling. And then in 1996, I got a chance to go to London to do a film. Directed by Waris Hussain, who's a very famous television film director. He's directed everybody, Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, just about everybody. I enjoyed that. I went to London for 1 month. It was a fantastic experience. And after I came back, I think it hadn't been 15 days since my return. And I told my son, I called him up. I said, there's no work coming. And he said, you've only been back 10 days. And on the 1st of January, Waris Hussain called me and said, I've recommended you for a play in London. Waris was doing a film and he recommended me for a play. I don't think I spoke to anybody. Waris showed them a clip of the film, in a scene from the film I was in. And the next thing I knew was I was ready to go to London. And so I was there for 4 months and it was a great learning experience for me. And I think in a way I got spoiled because the discipline and all that I learned there, when I came back, it was difficult for me to adjust. It really was. And after that, when I was in London doing the film, Waris told me that go and see a play called Art, A-R-T. It was about a man buying a white painting. So I went to see that film and it was that play, it was fabulous. When I came back after doing the play, I said, now I must do this play, but how do I do it? I can't adapt it to 3 women because the issues are totally different. So I asked for rights and I said, let me direct. That was my first directorial debut. I said, let me direct this play. So I got Rahul Bose, Zafar Karachiwala and Sorab Adeshi to act in the play. At the end of that year, that play was judged the best play of the year by several newspapers. Then I did Shirley Valentine, which is also a monologue. And I did plays with other directors also. But once you've directed yourself, it's difficult to let yourself be directed by other people. But I always believe in one thing. When you put yourselves in the hands of a director, it is that director's call. You don't argue, you don't tell other actors that you do this and you just don't do that. And unfortunately over here, the scene is a bit different. And after that, of course, then my son wanted me to do the Vagina monologues because he had heard of Eve Ensler. I think we even knew her before we met. And so I read the book and I said, I don't have a death wish. In India, this play will never work. I will never get through it because we are one of the few countries where theatre has to have a censor certificate. I believe now they've done away with that, but probably it'll come back again now with the OTT media and everything, being censored. And then when I went to America, my daughter is married there, my son gave me a ticket to go and see the play. And sitting in that auditorium with 1,500 people screaming and crying and laughing all at the same time, I got out and I sat in the car and I told my son, I have to do this play no matter what. I'll do 5 shows in South Bombay, 5 shows in North Bombay and then stop. Anyway, I came back and I applied for the rights because everything we do, we have to apply for rights. I don't like to take somebody's work and, fool around with it and make money and not give that person the due. And this is happening a lot in Indian films. It's happening a lot in theatre. So we wrote to her and she called us to New York to interview us. And she sort of asked about our work. And most of the work had got very, very good reviews. Shirley Valentine, Art, which was, as I told you, judged the best play of the year. In fact, the woman who gave us the rights for Art, when I applied for Shirley Valentine, she actually wrote in her handwriting that someone came to Bombay and saw your production of Art and came back and told us how fantastic it was. For me, that was real, this woman doesn't know me. So I knew that I was on the right track. So anyway, we applied for the rights. Then came the difficult part, how to get the censor certificate. So I was doing it for the BBC at the Taj. And this girl comes up to me and she says, Madam, what is your next project? She was a local girl. So I said, I have something very exciting, but I don't think I will be able to do it. And she said, why? I said, because you see, it's the Vagina monologues and I don't think I'll get a certificate for it. She said, who told you that? She said, I'm a member of the censor board. And out of 500 members, 5 people have to read your play, the right 5 people who understand art. She took the script and within 15 days or a month, I got the certificate. And the funny thing was, not a single word had been deleted. In art, when I did art, when I applied for the censor certificate, I remember this man used to call me up from the censor board certificate department and he would tell me, Madam, ye word nahi use karne ka. Word nahi use karne. And I said, what is the word? So when I got the script, it was the word. So he had cancelled out all the... It was very funny. So this Vagina monologues had nothing cancelled. It's a very brutal, a very explicit and a very different kind of play. It really comes and hits you where it hurts, you know. It also makes you laugh. It also makes you cry. It's very poetic. And I think the difference between this play and other plays is Scoring Point. It's written with such sincerity and such purity of purpose for women and for women's empowerment that after I put up the play, I never got a single negative comment. Of course, getting actors was another big problem. Nobody wanted to say the V word. You see, we in India, we think vagina is a dirty word. It's just the biological name of a part of the body of over half this world's population. And whether we like it or not, every single one of us has spent the first few months of our lives in very close proximity to it. You know, my grandsons who live in America, at the age of 3, they would not say shushu pee, they would say penis, you know, or they would say vagina. So I think a lot of our problems start with this repression, with making something that's beautiful, something that's meaningful, dirty. And that is where I blame our society.
Now, a couple of times you said that it was different here, but you did not explain it, right? Whenever you say something which happened in London or US, but it was different here. So what was that difference?
That difference would be that you are in the hands of your director, that you come on time, of course, because you're paid for it. And I was told the first day I went, you know, the tubes sometimes run late, the underground railway in London. And so I was, I think, 5 minutes late, and the chief assistant director was at the door, and he told me, it's okay today. You may be forgiven the next time, but the third time, don't even bother to come. So that is the amount of discipline one had. You don't argue with directors. Of course, there was an Indian actor also in the play, along with these two really giants of British theatre. And he was the absolute epitome of bad behavior. Absolute. And that was the only problem I had. You know, he would not take notes. He would not take the... We also had to sign contracts which were airtight. There was no drinking on stage or in the dressing room, something that this gentleman never followed. I was given a single entry visa, which meant that all my friends on weekends could probably go to Paris for a... I could not, because they were afraid that if I went and something happened, you know, you couldn't eat with your costume on. You had to either remove your costume or have a towel or a huge apron so that you don't dirty. These little things, which over here nobody cares for. Nobody. I just did a shoot with somebody just a few days ago. And the amount of indiscipline, I was aghast. Everybody was telling the director what to do. So these are the things, you know, discipline is the one thing, punctuality was the second thing, and not giving instructions to your co-actor. If I had a problem, I would tell the director that I think this is what I feel should be. If you think it's right, then you can please tell my co-actor. But I can't go and tell the co-actor that this is what happens. So I started also following these rules. And that is why the quality of your work always shows, you know.
That you were saying that, you know, after all these, I started getting work. Initially, we started with almost no money. But I guess the quality of the work just shows it. You don't need a referral.
No, there's this one brilliant actor, brilliant, very clever. I've acted with him. And he was always not wanting to do rehearsals. It was very funny. He'd tell me, oh, Mahabanoo, I never do rehearsals. Why so many rehearsals? And we did this wonderful play, and he got a lot of applause for it. And then he did a play with somebody, which he invited me to see. And he told me, he said, see, Mahabanoo, I only gave 4 rehearsals for this play. And I said, you know something? It showed. I could make out that there was only 4 rehearsals. It was so bad. I feel the more you rehearse, you know, Nasir always tells me that if you want to run in the Olympics, you have to run that race every single day. So you become familiar with what you're doing. And I've learned a lot from him also. Yes, yes. So I've been very blessed. I've acted with him in 2 plays. And one he directed, one I directed.
So my next question is, because you worked with very many famous men. So did you ever face any kind of sexism or gender inequality at work, at theatre?
No, I told you the sexism and gender inequality was at home. When my father refused, if it was a boy, he would not have, I think he would not have said anything. Then when I got married and I started doing theatre, there wasn't opposition. But the more success I got, there was more insecurity on the other side. And then it became a mess. And so I guess that was a kind of sexism, where the wife is not allowed to be successful or be sort of in the limelight, and a lot of insecure, and a lot of marriages are like that. So I would say just about that. But I feel that people walk all over you only if you allow them to. But maybe I started out late in life, and therefore not many people, if I said, screw off, nobody would answer back. Probably it was that. But no, I did not in my career, at least, ever experience that.
That's amazing, because a lot of...
But no, I did in London with that Indian actor, because he was a person who never took instructions from the director. And one day, as I was about to enter the stage, he catches hold of me and says, don't do what you're doing on the stage, because everybody's watching you and nobody's watching me. And I said, they're not watching you because you are not doing what the director wants you to do. If you stop doing what you're doing and follow the director's instructions. So the next day I told the director, and it's the one time I've done this, I said, I'm not going on the stage with this man. I'm sorry. But look at the integrity of the director. They brought him, they made him apologize, and so it was okay. Well, it wasn't okay, but
I have heard a lot of people, men, women, saying that there's a big pay gap in the industry, men versus vis-a-vis women. So is that a reality, or?
Well, I haven't reached that stage, but yes, then I don't know about men and women. In England, there wasn't at all any difference. Everybody was paid the same for rehearsals. Everybody was paid the same for shows, and it was very good pay for the play. For the film also, I don't think anybody was paid more or less. But over here, I find that the big actors, and it's funny, they get paid in crores, and you get paid a piddly amount, a few lakhs. And even that they give you grudgingly, saying, oh, budget bahut chota hai. I'm not asking you to do the film. Why are you telling me budget chota hai, to nahi karo film? You have come to me. I haven't come to you asking for a job. But it's sad because so many young people today want to be seen that some of them even do it free, with the result that a lot of mediocrity is coming up. There is no excellence in any of our work. Very few, very little of our work. Very, very little. If you see especially the television shows, horrible.
Ma'am, coming back to how can we use stories of theatre or films to create a revolution in our country or world? Can we use stories and films to do that?
Absolutely. That's what stories and films are for. And I won't talk about other countries because we in our country can't afford to say anything about others. But yes, stories can make a great difference. I found that throughout my journey, I've mostly done somehow, unintentionally, women-centric roles. And I found that especially in the Vagina monologues, somehow it has opened out a floodgate. People come backstage, they tell us their stories. And shall I give you, is there time to relate?
Yes.
I was going to Delhi a few years ago, and I was just about to sit in my seat when the girl from across the aisle got up and she said, Mrs. Kotwal, can I give you a hug? And I was quite surprised. I said, yes, of course. But I'd like to know why you're giving me that hug. I mean, some random person. And everybody's watching, the plane is about to start. So she takes out her mobile and she shows me a picture of myself and a man standing there. And I'm in my Vagina monologues costume. And she said, this was the happiest moment of my life. So I said, how wonderful that you saw the Vagina monologues and found a good man over there, because one of the taglines of the Vagina monologues is, if you want to find a good man, go and see the Vagina monologues. And she said, no, ma'am. After seeing your play, I decided to walk out of a 3.5-year abusive marriage. And to commemorate that moment, I took this picture. I made him stand next to you and I took this picture. So I said, I'm so sorry because I'm really sorry. I didn't know whether to be happy or to be sad. And she said, no, please be happy. Because she said, it is the best thing I could ever have done. And I would never have done it had I not watched Vagina monologues. Now, this is a life-changing experience. And there's several cases. There's a girl, I was doing a show in Hyderabad on Valentine's Day a few years ago. And as I was coming back, I saw this young girl, beautiful girl, sobbing away at the airport. So, just out of sheer this thing, I said, can I help you? Is there something wrong? And she said, no, I've just signed my divorce papers and I'm terribly upset. So I sort of tried to joke with her. I said, 10 years down the line, come and see me and tell me what it's like. 10 years down the line on Valentine's Day, she came to see the play. So these are stories. And then what happened was, I got this idea that women react so well to other women, and they should. So I saw a video of a man in, I think, Munich. He took a chair and he sat in the town's square. And he said, come, you want to tell me your story? Because, all of us want to talk. Nobody wants to listen to us. So he said, the number of people who just sat and poured their hearts out to me was just amazing. And he was saying this on a program on television. So I got an idea. I said, why don't I start something like that? So I put up a little notice on Facebook saying that I'm going to start an empathy group where we will empathize. We won't sympathize, we will empathize. Those of you who want to come, please join. The only conditions are no stories are to be shared with names outside the room and no medical advice is to be given to anybody. And we started meeting every month. And the stories that came out, they were shocking. And these were not stories from underprivileged women. These were stories from very, very privileged women. It was sad, how fathers didn't trust their own daughters, but they would trust the son-in-law. And so many stories that were amazing in their, and because violence, as you said, is not just physical violence. There is so much. There's emotional violence, there's manipulation, there is blackmail. There's so much of it, and so much of it goes on in every life. So that group now, last 2 times we met on Zoom, and we had a person from London, we had a person from Rome, and it was very exciting, to hear stories and to relate to them. And once somebody tells their story, it gives somebody a great impetus to tell their story, and they find a lot of support. Yeah. And our tagline is share, support, survive.
Wow.
You share first, you support, and then you survive. Fantastic idea, believe me.
It is.
I'm not saying it because I started it here, but it's helped. And so many of these women have become very close friends. So many, they mentor each other through illness. And sometimes abuse is not just abuse, but even an illness which your family may not care for you. All these things are some kind of violence towards them.
Actually, there's this movie Thappad, which I always refer to.
I loved it. Yes. I rarely see Hindi films, but I loved it. Another film that one should see is Sir, S-I-R, Sir.
Sir. Yes, Sir. I watched that movie.
I thought, that was like a slap in the face of Indian society. That and White Tiger. Yes. I thought that was superb, absolutely. Because we don't even realize how violent we are towards our house help. Yeah. We treat them like dirt, we literally abuse them, make them overwork, don't pay them enough. I mean, I know so many people who let their house help go during the pandemic because they said, why should we pay them? I mean, I had a cook and it was very difficult for me. We had absolutely no shows. So what we sort of, delved into our little savings and paid everybody what they were supposed to be paid. We didn't say, we won't pay you or we'll pay you only half.
Yes, as you rightly said, Thappad, Sir, White Tiger, something which is very natural and which is real. We are used to seeing larger than life pictures in movies, but they were quite...
Everybody dressed up like a Christmas tree. They sleep also with all those long earrings and chudas. But I think a change is coming up. A little change. I'm seeing a little change with these young film directors. They are doing a good job. Like Sir, like Kapoor. There was another film that I really liked, which was Stree. S-T-R-E. Even that had a message behind it for women.
Yeah.
It had a certain message.
Yes. Can we simplify the concept? I understand the concept is difficult for people to understand. People just don't understand micro inequities or little things that they must be doing. How do we simplify this? Is there any thought, any idea?
Yes. I do work with children, school children, and workshops. And what comes out of those workshops has made me realize that really the people who need these workshops the most are the parents. Till the parents don't change their attitude towards everything. Girls from good families are feeling that their brothers are being given the upper hand. That if they want to go out, they can. Why can't I go out? Why do I have to listen? So I feel that till a change comes up in the adults, we are not going to bring about a change in the younger ones. The younger ones will bring about a change, but a lot of it will be without responsibility, without really understanding the issue. I always tell them, you must ask questions. You ask questions from your parents, you ask questions to your teachers, question your religion, question everything. And if you feel that the answer you're getting is not the answer that is logically correct, discard it. Of course, I said don't discard it just because parents are against it, or find out, study it, research, find out why you feel that this answer is not right for you. Everybody can't have the same answer. Every answer is going to be different for every individual. But we must allow children to question us. We must. If you really think about it, all of us are repeating things our mothers taught us. Our mothers were taught by their grandmothers were taught by their grandmothers. So where is that original idea? Where is that original spark? Like I'll tell you, my father was religious. My mother was sort of religious, but she could do away with it a little bit. But she liked to think she was religious. I was religious till a certain time. I sort of really believed it would. And then one fine day, I said, it's not for me. It's not for me. For the last 25 years, I've been totally irreligious. Because after a lot of reading, I find that religion is the one thing that really divides people, that makes one person hate another. I'm not just talking of Hindus, Muslims. If you see in our Parsis, we don't allow our daughters to marry outside. And if they do, then their children cannot be considered Parsis. Now, that is sexism at its worst. That is gender bias at its worst. And yet Parsis do it. So I don't want to belong to any group that tells me my religion is better than yours, or that I am better than my caste is better than yours, or whatever it is that people feel they are better at.
Ma'am, anything that you think the theatre or the cinema should be working for women empowerment or is working towards women empowerment?
The vernacular theatre is excellent. I go to the Marathi plays and I find they are so beautiful, so beautiful. And they really, the women are so strong because they normally depict the lower middle class or the lower, less privileged people. And they are strong women who can fight society, who can overcome hardships, which actually the people in the Bastis do. Through the Vagina monologues, we translated it into Hindi. And then we decided that we wanted to take it to the lower, lesser privileged people. People who couldn't go to a theatre, who never went to a theatre. So we got a little grant, and with the help of an NGO in Dharavi, we did 10 shows for 500 women at a time, totally free. And we would give them a little snack and tea and coffee, just make it like an outing for them, and then we would do the play. And after the play, we would ask them for their response, like we would like to do at every show, but we don't allow because time is very short every time for the ticketed shows. And you will be surprised how women came out with their stories. Some of them even let us videotape their stories privately. And one day I'm hoping that some NGO or somebody will give me enough money to make a film out of those stories. Those natural stories related by these women from the Basti. I mean, it was just an awesome experience. Because when you talk about nutrition, about education, people are willing to give you something. The minute you talk about violence towards women, there's a scream. There's something that makes people just back away. I don't know what it is. Probably it hits too close to home. I have no idea.
Is it because it doesn't sell?
I think there's some kind of thing that holds them back because they know it's so real that it's happening. And how can they be part of showing reality as it is in today's world, in India?
Ma'am, one final question for you is any key message for women who are watching this conversation with you? Anything that you strongly want them to tell?
I want every woman to be responsible for the education of another woman. Because without education, you will not be able to go anywhere. The minute a woman is financially stable, she can walk out of whatever situation if she can think right for herself. And without education, that can't happen. And because even in the villages, a girl goes up to, say, the government pays for her schooling till the 5th standard. The minute she gets a period, she stops because there's no bathroom in the school, or she has to walk back, so many meters to go to the bathroom for fear and have fear of being raped or molested. So all the money that you put into that girl till 5th standard or 6th standard is wasted. If each family that is privileged would only take care of the families of their household in every way, see that their children are educated. And there are many people like that who can do that. Because without education, we are going to lose some. I mean, think of it. For every one person like you and me, there are thousands who are walking their way to school, miles to school, carrying water on their heads, There was this funny advertisement recently of one famous actor walking on the treadmill for so many miles in support of people who walk to schools. He doesn't understand that that person is walking to school with a heavy bag. That woman is walking to the tap to get water with a handi on her head, sometimes 2 handis. We have no idea. We have no concept of what we are doing. Anything that gets you attention is good, especially if you're an actor, which I'm not.
That's quite a powerful message, and I'm sure that will help a lot of people. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.